A tropical low in the Coral Sea, severe thunderstorms across Queensland, hot, humid conditions building across the north. That's what we're re-looking at over the coming days. I've been examining the latest data from the Bureau of Meteorology, tracking the models and monitoring conditions as they develop. There's quite a bit to cover here, so let's get straight into it. Right now, conditions across northern Australia are typical for this time of year, but that doesn't make them any less uncomfortable. Darwin S sitting at 35 degrees with high humidity. The build-up is well underway. If you in the top end, you know exactly what I am talking about. That sticky, oppressive heat that makes it hard to do anything outdoors. Up at Mount Carbine in far north Queensland, temperatures hit 30 degrees by 8:30 this morning, 85% humidity. Minimum overnight was 27 degrees. By mid-morning, too hot to work outside comfortably. Yesterday peaked at 35. That gives you an idea of the air mass we are dealing with across the far north. The Coral Sea has been active. There's a tropical low that has been sitting out there, and it's worth understanding what is happening with it. This system has been designated as Invest 17U. Now, for those who haven't come across that term before, an invest is basically a tropical disturbance that meteorologists are watching closely. It gets a number so the various weather models can track it and we can all discuss the same system. 17U has been meandering around in the Coral Sea for the past few days. The Bureau of Meteorology has been monitoring it closely, as have international agencies. The key question everyone's asking is whether this thing will develop into a tropical cyclone or just fizzle out. Let's look at what the models are showing. The Access model that the Bureau Australian Community Climate and Earth System Simulator has been fairly consistent. It showing this low pressure system maintaining its current intensity but not significantly strengthening. The GFS model out of the United States tells a similar story. The European model, which often picks up on details others miss, also shows limited development potential. What working against this system is wind shear. Upper level winds have been disrupting the organisation of the thunderstorm activity around the low. For a tropical cyclone to form and strengthen, you need warm ocean water, low wind shear and a conducive atmospheric pattern. We've got the warm water. The Coral Sea is sitting at 28 to 29 degrees Celsius. That plenty warm enough, but the wind shear is the limiting factor here. The most likely scenario based on current model guidance is that this low will continue to drift westward toward the Queensland coast but remain below cyclone intensity. That means we are looking at a tropical low, not a tropical cyclone. The difference matters. A tropical low can still bring heavy rain and thunderstorms, but you're not dealing with the organised, destructive winds of a cyclone. For those of you with plans along the coast, particularly around Bundaberg and the central Queensland coast toward the end of the month, this system is worth watching. I noticed someone asking about a fishing charter on the 31st of January. At this stage, conditions are looking marginal, not cyclone conditions, but rough seas, possible thunderstorms, and uncomfortable boating weather. If that's your charter, I'd be staying in close contact with your operator. They'll make the call based on marine forecasts closer to the date. Now, separate from the tropical low, we've got severe thunderstorm activity developing across inland and southern Queensland. This is a different weather feature altogether, driven by a surface trough interacting with the warm, humid air mass that has been building across the region. The pattern we're seeing is classic for this time of year. You get a surface trough, basically a line of low pressure that acts as a focus for thunderstorm development. Add in daytime heating, moisture from the Coral Sea being drawn inland, and you've got the ingredients for severe storms. The Bureau of Meteorology issued severe thunderstorm warnings for parts of Queensland. These warnings cover damaging winds, large hail and heavy rainfall that could lead to flash flooding. If you're in the areas under warning, you need to take this seriously. Damaging winds means gusts that can exceed 90 kilometres per hour. That is strong enough to bring down tree branches, damage roofs and knock over outdoor furniture. If you've got anything loose around the property, secure it now. Trampolines are a particular hazard. Either tie them down properly or flip them over. Large hail is the other concern. We're talking about hailstones potentially reaching 2 to 3 centimetres in diameter. That is big enough to damage cars, smash windows and ruin crops. If you've got vehicles outside and a storm's approaching, get them under cover if possible. If you're caught out driving when hail starts, pull over safely, stay in the car and keep away from windows. Heavy rainfall leading to flash flooding is probably the most widespread risk. These thunderstorms can dump 50 to 100 millimetres of rain in a very short period, an hour, sometimes less. That S, more rain than many areas see in a month, falling in the time it takes to watch a football match. Flash flooding happens fast. Low-lying areas, creeks and drainage systems cannot cope with that volume of water. Roads become rivers. If you come across a flooded road, do not attempt to cross it. If it's flooded, forget it. That is the SES slogan, and it exists for good reason. Every year people drown trying to drive through floodwater. The car loses traction, gets swept away, and you in serious trouble. It's not worth the risk. For those in rural areas with livestock, severe storms mean you need to think about where your animals are. Cattle and sheep will generally seek shelter naturally, but if you've got them in exposed paddocks, consider moving them somewhere with better protection. Check water supplies after heavy rain as well. Flooding can contaminate dams and troughs. Let us talk about the broader pattern we are in. This isn't just a one-day event. The combination of the tropical low in the Coral Sea and the surface trough across Queensland means we are in for an extended period of unsettled weather across the north and east. Over the next 5 to 7 days, expect scattered to widespread thunderstorms across Queensland from the Cape York Peninsula down through to the southeast. Some days will be worse than others. The most intense activity will likely occur during the afternoon and evening when daytime heating is at its peak. Rainfall totals will vary significantly depending on exactly where the storms form. Some areas might see 20 to 50 millimetres spread over several days. Others, particularly if a storm stalls overhead, could see well over 100 millimetres. That's the frustrating thing about thunderstorms. They highly localised. One town gets flooded while 20 kilometres away they don't see a drop. Temperatures across the affected areas will remain warm to hot. Daytime maximums in the low to mid-30s, overnight minimums staying uncomfortable mid to high 20s. That combination of heat and humidity makes for unpleasant conditions. If you're reworking outdoors, take it easy during the heat of the day. Stay hydrated, take breaks in the shade, and watch for signs of heat stress. Now, I want to address something that comes up whenever we discuss tropical systems in the Coral Sea. Some of you remember the major cyclones that have impacted the Queensland coast over the years. Cyclone Larry in 2006, Category 4 system that devastated the Innisfail area. Winds up to 290 kilometres per hour. Cyclone Yasi in 2011, Category 5, one of the most intense cyclones to cross the coast in recorded history. This system, Invest 17U, is not tracking to become anything like those events. I want to be very clear about that. The meteorological environment is different. The steering patterns are different. We're not looking at cyclone development at this stage, but that doesn't mean you ignore it. A tropical low can still cause problems. Heavy rain, flooding, rough seas, just not the widespread destructive winds of a cyclone. The reason I bring up those historical events is for perspective. When you've lived through major cyclones, it's easy to either overreact to every tropical disturbance or become complacent and ignore warnings altogether. Neither approach serves you well. The key is to stay informed, understand what you're actually dealing with, and respond appropriately. For those along the coast from about Townsville down to the Sunshine Coast, here is what you should be doing over the next week. Keep an eye on Bureau of Meteorology updates. They'll issue warnings as conditions develop. If you live in a flood-prone area, make sure you know where your emergency supplies are. Torch, batteries, first aid kit, medications, important documents in waterproof bags. Have a plan for where you will go if you need to evacuate. Check your property drainage. Clear gutters, ensure downpipes aren't blocked. Make sure water can flow away from the house. After big rain, blocked drainage can lead to water entering the home, even if you're not in an official flood zone. If you've got elderly neighbours or mates in isolated areas, check in with them. Make sure they're aware of what is forecast and that they're prepared. A lot of older folks in rural areas are stubborn about these things. They've seen it all before and reckon they'll be right. Sometimes they need a gentle reminder that preparing doesn't mean panicking. For marine interests, conditions are going to be rough. The Coral Sea will see increased swell, choppy seas, and thunderstorm activity. If you are planning to head out fishing or boating, check the marine forecast first. The Bureau issues detailed marine warnings that cover wind strength, sea state, and visibility. Small craft warnings will likely be in place across much of the coast. Commercial fishermen and charter operators, you already know the drill. This weather pattern will impact your operations. Make decisions based on safety, not on trying to keep to a schedule. The ocean will still be there when conditions improve. One aspect of this pattern that's worth noting is the potential for funnel clouds and waterspouts. When you've got this much instability and moisture, these phenomena can develop. A waterspout is basically a tornado over water. They read generally weaker than land tornadoes, but if you are out on a boat and one approaches, it's dangerous. If you see a funnel cloud or waterspout, get away from it. Change course, head for shore if practical, and report it to the Bureau of Meteorology. The longer range outlook beyond this current active period shows the monsoon trough potentially becoming more established across northern Australia, that S normal for this time of year. The monsoon brings the wet season to the top end and far north Queensland. Once it sets in properly, you get regular afternoon storms, humid conditions, and significant rainfall totals over weeks and months. For Darwin and the top end, you're already in that pattern. The build-up transitions into the wet. For the next few months, expect thunderstorms most afternoons, heavy rain, high humidity. Roads can become impassable in remote areas. Creek crossings flood. If you are planning travel in the top end or Cape York, factor in wet season conditions. Check road reports before you go. Looking at the southern states, you are in a completely different weather pattern. While the north deals with heat, humidity and storms, the south has been seeing much more pleasant conditions. Melbourne has been mild, Adelaide has been dry, Tasmania has been cool. That contrast is quite stark at the moment. Temperature difference between Darwin and Hobart is often more than 20 degrees. One end of the country baking, the other quite comfortable. That's the nature of a continent this size spanning different climate zones. There is a weak front that will move through the southern states midweek. That will bring a brief period of showers to Tasmania, Victoria and South Australia. Nothing significant, 10 to 20 millimetres at most, enough to wet the ground but not break any dry spells. Temperatures will drop slightly behind the front but nothing dramatic. For New South Wales, you are in the transition zone. The far north is dealing with the same humid, stormy pattern as Queensland. Sydney and the Central Coast are warm but not extreme. The southern tablelands and snowy mountains are cooler. That range in conditions from north to south shows how the weather pattern is set up. One thing to watch over the coming weeks is soil moisture across inland Queensland and northern New South Wales. We've had scattered storms, but many areas are still relatively dry. If we get widespread rain from this pattern, that'll help. But if the rain is patchy and localised, some areas will continue to struggle. Pastoralists and farmers, you'll be watching this closely. You need widespread soaking rain, not just isolated heavy falls. The scattered thunderstorm pattern we are in can deliver good totals to some properties while leaving others with nothing. That is the frustration of summer rainfall in inland Australia. It is hit and miss. For those in fire-prone areas, the humidity and storm activity reduces immediate bushfire risk across most of Queensland. That is one positive. Fire danger ratings remain low to moderate for the north and east. However, lightning strikes from these storms can start fires. If you are in rural areas and see smoke after a storm passes, report it. Lightning strikes can smoulder for hours before breaking out into a fire. Western Queensland and the Channel Country remain dry. This weather pattern isn't really impacting you. The tropical moisture and storms are focused on the coast and eastern inland areas. Further west, you are still waiting for decent rain. South Australia, Western Australia and the southern inland regions continue dry. No significant rain in the forecast for the next week. If you're in these areas, bushfire danger remains a concern. Check the fire danger rating daily, particularly on hot, windy days. Total fire bans will be declared when conditions warrant. Let's come back to the specific forecast for the next few days across Queensland and northern New South Wales. Tuesday, expect thunderstorms to develop across inland Queensland during the afternoon. The most likely areas are Central Highlands, Central West and Darling Downs. Some storms may become severe. Damaging winds and large hail are possible. Rainfall totals will vary from 10 millimetres to potentially over 50 where storms are heaviest. Coastal areas see isolated showers and storms, not as widespread as inland. The Coral Sea low continues to drift west but remains offshore. Seas are rough with swells to 2 metres. Wednesday, the pattern continues. The surface trough shifts slightly east. That brings the focus of storm activity closer to the coast. Southeast Queensland, including Brisbane and the Gold Coast, can expect thunderstorms developing during the afternoon and evening. Heavy rainfall is likely in some areas, flash flooding possible in low-lying suburbs and areas with poor drainage. Far North Queensland sees scattered showers and storms. Cairns, Port Douglas and surrounding areas, rainfall totals of 20 to 50 millimetres possible. Not cyclone conditions, but enough rain to cause localised flooding in catchments that are already saturated. Thursday and Friday, thunderstorm activity continues but may ease slightly. Models show the surface trough weakening and the overall pattern becoming a bit less active. Still expect storms each afternoon, but perhaps not as severe or widespread as earlier in the week. By the weekend, there is some uncertainty in the models. The Access and European models show the tropical low in the Coral Sea either moving away to the east or dissipating entirely. That would ease conditions along the coast. The GFS model is less convinced. It keeps shower and storm activity going. At this range, I wouldn't have put too much weight on the specifics. The overall pattern is clear. Unsettled, humid, stormy conditions for at least the next 5 days. Beyond that, we'll need to reassess as we get closer. For those asking about longer-term patterns, whether this is the start of a very active wet season or just a temporary burst of activity, it is too early to say. The monsoon indicators are mixed. Sea surface temperatures are warm. That supports development. But the Madden-Julian oscillation, which influences tropical activity, is in a phase that is not particularly favourable. What I can say is this is normal variability for this time of year. You get active periods, you get quiet periods. 1 week of storms doesn't necessarily mean the entire wet season will be active, just as a quiet week doesn't mean drought. Stay with the Bureau of Meteorology for official forecasts and warnings. They have the resources and expertise to monitor these systems continuously. My role is to provide context and explanation, but when it comes to official warnings, the Bureau is your source. If conditions deteriorate rapidly, if that tropical low does something unexpected and strengthens, the Bureau will issue warnings. Cyclone watches and warnings have specific criteria and lead times. Trust the official process. For now, the message is straightforward. Severe weather across Queensland over the coming days, heavy rain, strong winds, flash flooding possible. The tropical low in the Coral Sea bears watching but isn't a cyclone at this stage. Prepare sensibly. Secure loose items. Know where your emergency supplies are. Have a plan. But don't panic. This is weather we deal with regularly in Northern Australia. Respect it, prepare for it, but don't let it stop you living your life. Keep an eye on forecasts. Check the Bureau S website and app for updates. If you're in an area under a severe weather warning, take it seriously. These warnings exist for good reason. And finally, look out for each other. Check on neighbours. Make sure people are aware of what S forecast. Community resilience starts with people looking after mates. That S where we stand. I'll continue monitoring this pattern and provide updates as conditions develop.